have it updated continuously.
Well, we'll do everything we can. Our plan is to sample it and monitor it once a week, and then we've got to process the data. There's some calculations to be doing. We'll get them to John, and we'll process them on through. What we found in the installation of the GeoProbe, there was intermittent, the gas, from what I recall, the shallow gas zone wasn't in all the wells. It was in some of the wells, and it was in the 30 to 35 foot deep.
Okay, the monuments. I had a monument put in, and then they took it out. Can you tell me what's the plans for create or establishing a benchmark for subsidence?
Currently, you're right. We did start down the path installing with plans to install benchmarks, and there's a lot of engineering support to design the benchmark. One of the challenging situations with putting a benchmark in an area where the soil is very saturated is that depending on the moisture content, as we all know, that ground will swell or shrink. That has a big effect on the reliability of the benchmark. As a result, the benchmark design that was installed in your location had an outer pipe and an inner shaft that went to depth to try to get past any portion of the clay that would hydrate or dehydrate. The problem is that because of the depth of that gas zone, that outer PVC tube actually penetrated that gas zone and caused gas leakage. As a result, we just didn't feel it was safe to leave that benchmark in the community in a residential area with it possibly leaking gas, so we pulled it and grouted it. Our plan right now is to use a certified surveyor to try to tie in the top of each wellhead and to mark each location as an interim so that we can measure subsidence, or actually the elevation of each GeoProbe well, and tie it back in to surveys being done across the whole Napoleonville Dome, Highway 70 through DOTD, and get all that so that we can get an interim measure of whether or not that wellhead's staying right where it's supposed to or it's moving in. Long term, we're looking at the potential of using satellite imagery that does routine flyovers that will measure deviation or movement of the soil in a measure of 1 millimeter or 2. And it will look at pretty much any hard surface, like a sidewalk or, steps or even a mailbox. It'll see that, and it looks for that change, and there's a lot of mathematics that goes with that. It's pretty proven technology in a lot of areas. They used it in the Katrina, post-Katrina in New Orleans to look for movement of soil and all that. That's the technology we're looking at, but we haven't gotten to this point. So in the interim, we're actually going to do, the old school way, and that's a surveyor transfer.
So when is the benchmark going to be established?
We haven't decided when or if we're going to install benchmark. We're still talking to DNR, and after we had the experience with the first benchmark, from a safety perspective, we decided to hold on that and decide if we could install a benchmark later on, what it would look like, or even if it was needed, if we could go to some other mechanism that was far safer.
Well, we're flaring, and we're continuing, and we're trying to flare even more. Now we've got people in the neighborhoods that are saying they're noticing that their doors are not closing the way they used to. There's things going on, so you're not doing anything about subsidence. You're not identifying. You're not making the effort. So what happens whenever our doors don't close anymore? We can't use our homes. Where do we go from there?
Well, we're going to do the subsidence monitoring. As I mentioned, we just completed the installation of these GeoProbes, and they will do subsidence measuring on those GeoProbe wells. If they go deep enough, they're not going to shift any. So
are we talking 6 months, a year from now?
No, we're in the process of doing this in the next couple of weeks, but we're using a surveyor crew and surveyors that have been very busy doing things like the sinkhole survey, depth measurement, stuff like that.
All right, so can we say 2 weeks from now, this will be done?
We'll do everything we can to get that done. But there is a holiday in the middle, and we have to take, we can't get a contractor to do work if he's not around.
Well, we're getting a lot of promises and no action.
We're gonna move on and get the ECOGs, but I think I don't want to, Mr. Martin. I don't want to take issue with what you said, but let me tell you something. And I don't want to minimize what happened in 2003, but just for an example, John Boudreaux was emergency preparedness director. I was on the police jury in 2003 when we had the Gulf South incident in Grand Bayou. And I just want to tell you that you sit here and you tell us that you're committed to doing everything you can to resolve the situation. And all we can do is take you at face value. But I can tell you, for those of you that were here, the response to the 2003 incident and what we see today are night and day. Within 6 weeks, they drilled or put in 30 vent wells, designed these vent wells that you all are trying to utilize today, the same vent wells you're utilizing. They brought a team of experts from PBKBB here. They met with the residents on a routine basis. They had their experts here, their rock mechanics and geologists here. They weren't relying on DNR to take a proactive approach. They drilled 30 vent wells within a matter of weeks and took a proactive approach. It was a very serious event. Many of you were adversely affected. I understand that. But we don't see the sense of the proactive approach with you all. And I'm just being honest with you, and we have to say it. We've been almost 6 months, and everything that's been done by you all has been required by DNR and pursuant to orders. It seems that you have this reluctance to want to, everything you do might be an admission of liability or some other effect. If you're going to be straight with the public, you're going to be straight with the parish, you have to move forward and get these things done. Bring your team of experts in, bring your people in here. For an example, something very minor. When Gulf South was required or stated they would put in-home monitoring for those people that wanted monitoring. You didn't have to put it in your home, but if you decided you wanted an in-home monitor, they met in agreement with the parish, paid the parish for us to hire retired people to roam the community. In the event there was an alarm, they could be Johnny on the spot, right there on location to see if it was a false alarm and try to respond in immediacy. We had those people circulating the community for 24 hours. They were paid by the parish, but were reimbursed by the Gulf South operator at that time. These were agreements we made, paid by Gulf South, so we could respond to this. Your response is, after an order from DNR, we'll just have them call 911. Well, you're going to have our volunteer departments called out for false alarms. You're going to have our volunteer firemen called out for false alarms. You're going to be taxing and utilizing our sheriff's department for these false alarms. If it's your order and if it's your responsibility, you pay for the security. Allow us to hire the appropriate people to be there 24 hours in the community to be on top of this issue. I can tell you, the response is like night and day. It's clear as a button to us. We were here. You've been operating on a dome for 40 years. You ought to have a commitment to these people, and you ought to be honored in the commitment. It's time for us to get this thing done. You ought to have your team of experts, rock mechanics, geologists here. These are all people paid by the taxpayers. We're footing their bill to see what they need to order you to do. It's time for you to step up. If not, just come up here and say, it's not our responsibility, we won't do anything, and quit giving us the BS. It's time for you to tell us if you're going to commit, let's get things done. That's all I have to say. Now let's hear from Mr. Heath out to the short